got Pete Agnew, bass player, Dan McCafferty, lead vocalist with Nazareth. Boys, good to see you. Tell me a little bit about the album Boogaloo.
Actually, good to see you as well. Jay Crawford we've got here, one of our old-time pals, incredible DJ and presenter. Thanks for doing this with us.
It's a pleasure.
And he's Russian as lousy.
One of the most unusual interviews we've ever done, all sitting on Harley Davidsons here at Albans in Edinburgh. But Boogaloo, you know, how many albums is that now, Pete?
That's the 20th studio album. Yeah. Although there was live and God knows how many compilations. You know. 20th studio album. Yeah.
So what was the approach to this album? What made it different?
Well, it was the first time we'd done the album with Jimmy and Ronnie, because the last album we did, Billy split just after it, or we got rid of him, whichever way you want to look at it.
We fired him.
Oh, there you go. And so we had that whole album tour to do, and we did that, and it got the band together, Jimmy and Ron playing with us. And when we decided to write the stuff for this one, everyone was involved. We rehearsed a lot of stuff, got it all together, got a little 8-track together and did it ourselves. So by the time we got into the studio, we knew exactly what we wanted to do with the tune. Yeah. So we did all that.
We played it live as well, pretty much. You know, recently, I mean, it's been happening through the 80s and 90s. You know, nobody goes in and just makes it, well, not nobody, but most people don't go in and just make a record anymore. It's you know, you put down a drum track, then you put in a bit of this track and a bit of that track, and it's all technically perfect. But at the end of the day, you know, you lose a bit of the soul. So we decided, and we've done it. We've done the same. We did it in.
Yes, we made the same mistake.
Yeah, we made the same mistake. And on this one, we decided to play it live. You know, off the floor of the studio, when the guy counts to 4 on the hi-hat, off you pop, and everybody played it. And I think that's where we sort of captured the, you know, the live thing, I think, you know.
Of course, not only have you toured all over the world, but you've recorded all over the world as well. And I thought about you when everything happened on the island of Montserrat in the Caribbean with the volcano going off, because of course you made 2 albums there. How did you feel about that, watching the devastation?
It was just dreadful. I mean, because it was a place that had made us very welcome. You know, the folks, you know, everybody knew it was the big thing on the island, was the studio.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, hey man, you're the guys from the studio. You can't do no matter what band you are. They were just happy to see you. And then when this thing struck, it was just like, oh my God.
Terrible. And they'd already had a massive hurricane in the early 80s.
That's right.
You know, everybody put an album together. There was Sting. Everybody that recorded there, Jay. There was Sting and Elton John and us and everybody, you know? Jerry Rafferty. And we put a thing together for the hurricane relief. And by the time that thing actually got taken up and making some money, another hurricane hit and it wiped out the studio. In fact, it's a story, there is actually a big desk there that's worth £500,000. If you're willing to go out and get it and get all the salt water out of it, it's yours, pal. You know, but,
you can take it away.
Really, it's still there with the studio. But the studio was built as a hurricane shelter. So that didn't work.
No, it didn't.
And then that volcano came on. It's funny, that volcano, we've been inside it. We walked down inside that volcano. And, you know, for the first time we went there, the hot water coming up and the smell of the sulphur and everything. And
they said it was dormant.
They said it was dormant.
Yeah.
So you don't.
What was the sad part was, like, these people, you know, generations of these people had lived there for years, and it was like, it was an idyllic little island. I mean, and these families just had to move off. Well, die, you know what I mean? So, you know,
well, Plymouth, the main city now is covered in just, well, you've seen it on the TV. It's just ash, you know. And when
dreadful.
I see the wee bars that we used to go and drink in when we were there, and they're just, well, they're just not there anymore, you know.
Well, one of the best reactions that you've had to the new album Boogaloo has been from Russia. So how do you feel about that, and what do you put it down to? What is it about this album, do you think, that struck a note with the Russian people?
I think because, as Pete said, we did it live off the floor, and it reminds them of older albums like Razamanaz and Loud and Proud and stuff like that. It's got that energy and it's got that kind of feel that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And
yeah, we've done 5 tours in Russia now, up to date, you know, and so they know there's a new album ready, you know, and in a lot of bands' cases they don't know if it's a new one or if it's one from the past, but they know that we were due a new one, you know. So it was kind of waited for, and thankfully everybody liked it.
Are you looking forward to going back to Russia to tour?
Oh yeah, sure.
We have a lot of fun there.
The folks are great, you know, and it's we've noticed a difference. I mean, we first went in 1990, and we were there, what, a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
And they're much more aware now. I mean, they've got MTV too, you know, so it's like...
McDonald's.
They got McDonald's, and it's like, the people just know more about the West and Western music than they did before. So they've really got the energy up for coming to see the shows, and they're looking forward to anybody that tours, I think, you know.
What were the highlights on the last tour that you were there? Where did you enjoy playing most?
Well, the last tour, the tour before, we played in Yekaterinburg, and we stayed in Boris Yeltsin's his dacha place, and Dan had his room, and he had his great big...
well, Boris's goonie.
His dressing gown.
Boris's dressing gown.
I've got a picture of him in Boris's dressing gown. That was good fun, you know. We've had a lot of fun in Russia, a lot of fun there. I mean, it's just... The only thing is, we've never ever seen it in the summertime. We always seem to go in November or in February. So when people say, what does Russia look like? And I say, well, it's white.
Big snow.
Know? It's got trees and it's all white, because that's what it looks like to us, you know. But that's a great place.
It's good. The folks are great, and the concerts are great. They just love anybody that's coming to see them, I think.
When you look back at all the tours that you've done, and I think the first time you went to America was in 1974, supporting Deep Purple, and you were on the road for about 10 months at that time. And it was a long time away from home for the boys from Scotland. But,
sure.
But what do you remember about that, and what have been the highlights of touring over the years?
Well, what we remember about that was just like, it was the first time we'd been to the States at all, you know, and it was just like, wow, you know, it was like this whole culture shock, you know, it was a different thing, and we didn't realise how much American people were into music, when the audiences were just wild at that time. And it was just, for us, it was just a thrill. I mean, it was like, we grew up in a small town in Scotland dreaming about, you know, making a record. Would have been, hey, that would have been it, you know. But then you go out and tour, and you got all this interest in you, and you know, you're making your second record and your third record, and it just kept going. And that whole period just seemed like one thing.
Yeah. Deep Purple as well became part of the family thing anyway, because they took us out so many times with them. They did the same. Just before the Razamanaz album, they took us out in Britain, in Europe, and it was great. And eventually Roger, the bass player, ended up, producing 3 of our albums. So we were really close to the band, you know. In fact, Dan and I just saw them, just
before Christmas,
yeah, we saw them. They were playing in Belgium. We were out doing a promotional tour to promote Boogaloo, and the guys were playing in Belgium, and where was it?
The big, I don't know the name of the big British.
And so we just showed up, you know, gave them a wee surprise. They're still good pals.
Nice,
yeah. When obviously there's a big change for the band since Darryl died.
Yeah.
Darryl wasn't only the drummer with the band, but he also looked after, you know, the running of affairs for the band. He was in effect your manager, and it obviously was an incredible blow to you both, I know personally, but also from a career point of view. How have you coped with it?
Well, it's a case of, what do? You know, do we just stop, or do we keep going on? And we figured the wee man would be really pissed off if we just stopped, you know. So it was like, so it's a case of tidying up what we can, business-wise, and just keeping the band going, you know. And Lee, that's playing the drums with us now, Pete's son, we found the perfect dancer. But I mean, Lee had been out on the road with us anyway. He knew that he's known the music since he was a kid.
Actually, Lee's toured Russia twice with us. You know, he came out as a drum tech, and he used to play percussion with us. So he's actually...
He played percussion on
that's right. So I mean, he knows, he knows the story. You know?
I think when we got Lee in, and I mean, it was mostly all the guys in the band said, like, why don't we get Lee? Because he's a great drummer. Anyway, we all know that.
Oh, sure.
The other thing is that he's
part of the family.
Well, yeah,
it's simpatico as well. You know, I mean, he knew the tunes. You know,
it didn't feel as if we were replacing Darryl with a stranger or something. You know, that we were just going to go out and say, right, we're going to have drum auditions. You know, we didn't want to do that. So Lee actually came in. It was funny because when we went to do the rehearsals in Dunfermline, up in Sinkies, it's a local pub where we do our rehearsals. We booked the place for like 2 weeks, and we went in the first day, and Lee just played everything, just like that. And we thought, well, we've got 2 weeks off, because he toured with us so much, he knew the numbers back to front. Yeah.
Pete and I need rehearsals. The rest of the boys seem to know what's going on, to be quite honest.
But can I ask you personally, really, because you were both with Darryl when he died at the hospital in Kentucky, and it must have been incredibly difficult to pick yourselves up from that, having been with them.
It was
so long.
it was just unbelievable. You know,
It's still unbelievable.
It's still unbelievable.
You know,
I mean,
still.
even on the last tour, we're out in the bus. You know, you sort of wake up. And you know, when you're in between sleeping and awake, you keep expecting them to show up and say something silly.
Do something stupid.
Do something
normally
stupid.
did,
You know?
yes.
And you realise that he's not going to do that anymore. You know, so it's I don't think you ever. Well, you're never going to forget him, but I don't think you'll ever really. I don't know, have you ever come to terms with something like that?
Never get over it.
Well,
really.
I don't think so.
Even when
you
you're
know.
playing on stage, you know, it's still...
You remember the happy things, but I mean, you know.
There were a lot of them with Darryl
Oh,
too,
God,
because he was the
aye.
life and soul of the party, wasn't he?
He was
Yes,
indeed.
he was a bit of a joker.
He was
You know,
a party beast.
He did like
that's for
to...
sure. He liked to J.
He did like to carry on. Yeah.
You know, we've got so many great cultural exchanges happening between Scotland and Russia, and there are great links between the two countries, going back to Ravi Burns and their appreciation of his poetry.
Right.
How do you feel at the moment we are as coming up to the millennium that you can help to build a little bit more of an understanding between East and West, between Russia and Scotland?
Well, the first time we went to Russia, it was still the Soviet Union then. It was in 1990. And what it was part of a cultural exchange. And what happened was, like, Britain got the Bolshoi Ballet, and Moscow got Nazareth. So I don't know who actually scored on that deal.
How that deal went.
That was the actual thing. The first time we went, it was a cultural exchange, and see, so that proves we're really cultured, I think.
Oh,
you know.
cultured.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been 30.
And I believe Bar's Lemon Brew. He's very popular in Russia.
Top-selling drink.
A top-selling drink,
But,
and rightly so.
It's been 30 years now, boys.
I know.
You know,
It's a long
30
time.
years. And when you look back at it, if you had to pick, you know, one particular moment, one particular record, what would the moment and the record be for each of you? One track and one particular time from the last 30 years of being with Nazareth.
Well, I suppose when Broken an Angel, which was our first hit record, and anywhere, you know, at home it was, and we were driving from a gig, we just booked a British tour, and we were driving to the first gig, and we heard it on the radio, and I can't remember even where the first show was.
It entered the charts or something.
And it entered the charts, and the gig sold out that day, and it was just like, that whole tour was just magic. It was like, you know, it was the first time we'd heard ourselves on the radio, you know, apart from like John Peel shows and things like that, live things. And it was just like, wow, you know, we've made it, we're huge. And
Actually,
then,
we spent
then
all
they
the
told us
gig...
how much debt we were in.
Aye. We actually spent all
We
the
kind of
gig money...
spoiled it a bit, but there you go.
We spent all the gig money from that tour on champagne, celebrating the fact that we were going to be famous. But broke.
Yeah, but 30 years later you still are, and long may it continue. Pete, Dan, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Jay, thank
Yes.
you.